Hello there, welcome to Nowhere to Hide. I'm Brian Hyde. Today we're going to be talking about your religious beliefs and even just your personal beliefs. Are they really safe here in Idaho? You would think of all the states in the Union that this would be one where especially religious freedom would be respected. However, I'm going to share a story with you about some very serious religious discrimination coming from a rather unlikely place. I've got details coming up.
All reporters are biased, the Idaho Press Club are biased, all media, newspaper, radio.
To be completely blunt here, Brian, and there are plans to expand
indoctrination.
That's right.
Well, Idahoans are also concerned.
Horror shot. That line would be moving a little bit farther west.
I'm like crying.
Nobody wants to see
Dark money is influencing policy.
Once again, welcome to Nowhere to Hide. You know, when it comes to religious discrimination, oftentimes you'll hear, particularly people on the left, say, well, that's just a persecution complex you have and nobody's really doing it. But then they'll turn around and say, well, if it is happening, it's probably justified. And maybe at the end of the day, they say it's a good thing. But I'm going to share with you a story that right now doesn't seem to get much attention, at least within Idaho media. Now, granted, I have not had days or weeks to be researching every single Idaho media outlet, but the primary outlets through which people get their information seem conspicuously quiet about the case of David Worley. Now, David was a National Guard officer in the Idaho Army National Guard who was removed from his position and essentially forced to resign because he was said to hold extremist beliefs based on his religious beliefs, personally held beliefs, that not that he was going out and forcing on bayonet point on other people, but that he was simply, expressing on his own time and in his own private life. So let's first of all look at the story here. This is from Christina Wong on Twitter. She says it's concerning. According to Liberty Counsel, which is a legal First Amendment and religious rights legal organization, an Army officer was fired from command for his Christian beliefs. Army National Guard Major David Worley ran for mayor in Pocatello, Idaho. This was back in, I believe, 2023, and expressed opposition to issues involving so-called drag queen story hours, pornographic material for minors in public libraries, and medical mutilation of gender-confused children. Now, the speech he gave expressing these beliefs was off-duty, out of uniform, and protected. And it was also before he took command of the Idaho Army National Guard's recruiting and retention unit. So very important that you have that context, that you understand this was not some guy out there on a street corner trying to start something. However, in 2023, a subordinate senior enlisted soldier filed a formal discrimination complaint against Worley, claiming he created a hostile work environment. Now, this was a soldier who apparently identifies as homosexual and had heard Worley's beliefs out there on the campaign trail and thought, what better chance to strike back, for us poor persecuted people who don't even have a month to celebrate everything about us. Sorry, I digress. Well, according to Liberty Counsel, the Idaho Army National Guard suspended Worley from command in July of 2023. This is right after the complaint was filed, and then illegally pressured him to resign without any benefit of counsel or notice. Now, Worley rescinded his notice 2 hours later after talking with Liberty Counsel. The lawyers there said, don't go along with this. But the Idaho Army National Guard then proceeded with a formal investigation into the complaint. And here's the kicker. The complaint was unsubstantiated. They found zero evidence that Worley did anything wrong in the workplace. However, out of this investigation came a recommendation that all candidates for command be scrutinized to ensure any concerning expression is discovered, reported to the Department of Defense, and then investigated for extremist activity. Wow. What a difference, huh? According to Liberty Counsel, his commander, Brigadier General James Packwood, concluded Worley's religious beliefs were toxic and removed him from command solely due to those protected religious views. Now, the problem we get into here is a lot of this is very subjective. Well, how do we know, what you believe is toxic? How do we even know that it's extremist or something like that? How often do we hear that word extremist? Trying to convince us why you can't pay attention to that person or this person. Well, the story continues. This is from the lawsuit that has been filed against Governor Brad Little and two other Idaho Army National Guard officials. So From the lawsuit, it says, in light of Major Worley's religious beliefs, views, expressions, and exercise, the investigating officer recommended that all candidates for command be scrutinized to ensure that their Christian beliefs, views, or expression are discovered prior to being given command and reported to the Department of Defense for investigation concerning extremist activity. That's just for having Christian beliefs. You don't have to do anything crazy. As evident by the investigating officer's report and recommendations, those with Christian and religious views need to be screened to ensure that no such individual is selected for command, because those persons cannot serve with persons of diverse backgrounds, like the subordinate homosexual individual who filed the complaint in the first place. Simply put, defendant's investigating officer in this matter recommended that there be no Christians in command in the Idaho Army National Guard because of their concerning ideologies. Now, let's put this into even a little bit more context here. Brigadier General Packwood affirmed in whole the recommendation to monitor the political activities of the Idaho National Guard to reflect the extremism instruction of the Department of Defense. And I'm going to share with you the actual memorandum that the Department of Defense sent out telling what they need to look out for. In other words, Brigadier General Packwood affirmed the need to scrutinize potential candidates for command to ensure that their Christian beliefs, views, or expression are discovered prior to being given command and reported to the Department of Defense for investigation of concerning extremist activity. You don't have to do something crazy. You don't have to do something hateful. You don't even have to do something suspicious. You just, oh, he's a Christian? Well, we better take a closer look at that. Sounds a little discriminatory, but hey. So here it is, Army Directive 2404-07. Actually, 2024-07, handling protest, extremist, and criminal gangs activities. Now, this is pertaining to military members. And they talk about how it's the commander's responsibility to maintain good order and discipline in the unit. Every commander has inherent authority to take appropriate actions to accomplish this goal. And so here they list the prohibitions and the violations of prohibitions contained that could result in punitive or administrative action. In other words, they list a whole slew of things that could be problems. Now, some of these are actually quite reasonable. If you have a soldier who's engaged in gang activity, and believe it or not, that does happen, okay, that could definitely be concerning. But number 6 on the list, advocating widespread unlawful discrimination. Oh, well, unlawful. Now, this means you can't hold a differing point of view based on race, color, national origin, religion, sex, including pregnancy, gender identity, or sexual orientation. In other words, if anybody's feelings get hurt for any reason, then that could be considered an extremist activity. Now, from the Christian Post, which reported on this today, the lawsuit names Governor Little, Adjutant General of the Idaho National Guard, Major General Timothy J. Donnellan, and Assistant Adjutant General for the Idaho Army National Guard, Brigadier General James C. Packwood, as defendants. And they assert that Worley was removed for the mere exercise and expression of his religious views, despite an official investigation finding no wrongdoing on his part. Liberty Counsel founder and chairman Matt Staver said in a statement that the U.S. Supreme Court has long held military members do not shed their constitutional rights when they step forward to serve the nation. Now, that doesn't mean that they don't have guidelines of what you can do in and out of uniform. You're not supposed to go out and politic while in uniform. But Staver says, nor are the military departments immune to the laws protecting their individual freedoms. The Constitution doesn't simply allow the military to punish those with sincerely held religious beliefs or to specifically target religion for disparate and discriminatory treatment. Staver says that Governor Brad Little must ensure that the Idaho Army National Guard upholds federal and state law and protects the free speech of its service members. This discrimination against Major Worley must stop, his record must be cleared, and his career restored. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, well, I don't have a dog in this fight. I'm not in the military, or I'm not gay, and I can't imagine why this matters. Look, it comes down to, are you able to hold sincere beliefs? And granted, not everybody's going to agree with them. That's fine. But the sincere belief that homosexuality should not be indoctrinated into children in school, that they shouldn't be given books that have very salacious illustrations and storylines, that shouldn't be taught deviancy, that they shouldn't be encouraged to undergo medical intervention for permanent solutions to temporary gender confusion and that sort of thing. That's not extremist belief. That's normal. That's what regular people have believed for many generations. It's only in the last few years that we've really started to see this brainwashing push that would make something like that controversial. Oh, well, we probably better get that person right out of the public eye because, they hold this dangerous belief, which nonetheless was rooted in not only reality, but in common sense and in basic decency. Nothing in there is advocating hurting somebody else's feelings. Nothing is advocating taking away their rights. It's simply asserting truths that were once very easily understood. In fact, they were so self-evident, we really didn't need to state them out loud because people would understand. Those two guys holding hands, if that's how they want to pursue happiness, more power to them. But it's not the same thing as a marriage with a man and a woman that can actually produce children and, continue the human race. Anyway, how crazy is it that we've got to the point that it's a court case, it's a legit case, and it'll be very curious to see what Governor Brad Little does with this. Governor Little, to his credit, has actually, I guess he's tested the wind and said, things are seeming a little more conservative than normal. And he has come around on a number of things. It will be very telling to see whether he digs in his heels or whether he works to right this wrong regarding this major in the Idaho Army National Guard, and it restores him to his career and prevents, future episodes of this kind of discrimination from taking place. I'm Brian Hyde, and this is Nowhere to Hide.
All reporters are biased. The Idaho Press Club are biased. All media, newspaper, radio.
To be completely blunt here, Brian, and there are plans to expand
indoctrination.
That's right.
Well, Idahoans are also concerned.
Horror shot.
That line would be moving a little bit farther west.
I'm crying.
Nobody wants to see
Dark money is influencing policy.